Have you ever noticed this moment? Maybe it just happened today. You're in a conversation. The room is noisy. People are talking over each other. And then someone says something important, something certain. And instead of raising their voice to compete with the noise, they lower it. You lean in without realizing it. Or maybe you're the one who does it. When you know what you're saying is right, when you're not guessing, when you're not asking for approval, your voice drops, slows, gets quieter, almost intimate, almost inconvenient for anyone who isn't paying attention. It's strange, isn't it? Confidence is supposed to be loud. Certainty is supposed to project. We imagine powerful people filling rooms with sound, but in real life, some of the most grounded statements arrive softly, like they don't need help being believed. So what's going on here? Why do some people lower their voice precisely when they feel sure, when they've reached a conclusion, made a decision, or touched something true? This isn't about shyness, it isn't about insecurity, and it definitely isn't about weakness. It's about how the mind behaves when it stops negotiating. Let's take this apart. Picture a meeting. Nothing dramatic. A table, a few laptops, someone rambling a bit too long. Then a person who's been quiet the whole time finally speaks. Not louder, quieter, measured, almost calm to the point of being dangerous. I don't think this is the right direction. No emphasis, no theatrics, just certainty. The room shifts. That moment tells us a lot about a certain kind of mind. One type of person who lowers their voice when they feel certain is the internal validator. You can usually spot them because they don't warm up out loud. They don't think by speaking. They think privately, slowly, sometimes obsessively, until something clicks, until the fog clears. Most people use conversation to find their position. They speak to test ideas, to see how they land, to adjust based on reactions. Their volume often rises with uncertainty. They fill space while they're still figuring things out. But internal validators do the opposite. When they're uncertain, they may talk more, ask questions, sound tentative. Their voice moves around. Then something settles. And when it does, their voice drops. Because at that point, they're no longer performing a thought process, they're reporting a conclusion. The work has already happened, internally, where no one could interrupt or influence it. Lowering the voice here isn't a tactic, it's a signal of completion, like setting something down gently because it's finished. If this is you, you might notice that when you speak quietly, people either lean in or talk over you. There's rarely a middle ground. Some sense the gravity. Others miss it completely, and maybe you've learned not to repeat yourself. Then there's another profile, slightly different, more strategic, but not in a manipulative way. This is the person who lowers their voice because they understand attention. Imagine someone telling a story at dinner, loud, animated, everyone's listening, until suddenly the storyteller lowers their voice on the most important line, and the table goes silent. This type learned early, sometimes unconsciously, that volume competes, but quiet commands. That when you lower your voice, you force others to adjust themselves to you, to lean forward, to choose to listen. But here's the key difference. They only do this when they're certain. When they're uncertain, they might talk fast, over-explain, add disclaimers. Their voice moves upward, not down. Certainty flips the switch. Lowering the voice becomes a way of saying, I don't need to push this. It will land on its own. This isn't about dominance, it's about trust in the message. If you recognize yourself here, you might also notice that you hate repeating strong points. You say them once, calmly, quietly, and if they're ignored, you file that information away, not about the idea, but about the listener. Then there's a more emotional, less talked about category. The people who lower their voice when they feel certain, because certainty feels private. These are often emotionally observant people, sensitive to atmosphere, to the weight of words. They know instinctively that some truths don't like being shouted. Picture someone admitting something real, not dramatic, not confessional, just honest. I don't think I want that life anymore. Notice how rarely that sentence is loud. For this type, certainty isn't exciting. It's sobering. It carries emotional gravity, and gravity pulls things downward, including the voice.
Raising their voice would feel like making the moment public before it's ready, like exposing something still warm. So they lower it, as if to protect the truth from becoming spectacle. If this resonates, you might notice that your quietest statements are your most serious ones, and that you feel uncomfortable when people respond too loudly to something you said softly, as if they misunderstood the tone entirely. You weren't inviting applause, you were naming something real. Then there's a quieter, almost paradoxical type, people who lower their voice when they feel certain because they're done persuading. Think about how people sound when they're trying to convince someone. The energy goes up, the pitch rises, the explanations multiply. The volume increases, not because they believe more, but because they believe less that they'll be understood. Certainty removes that urge. This type used to argue, used to push, used to raise their voice to be heard, until one day something shifted. They realized that persuasion requires effort, but clarity doesn't. Now, when they speak quietly, it's not because they expect agreement. It's because agreement is no longer the goal. They're not asking, they're stating. And if you've ever noticed yourself lowering your voice right before setting a boundary, this might be you. I'm not doing that anymore. No anger, no explanation, just a line drawn softly and firmly. Finally, there's a type that often goes unnoticed because their quietness is mistaken for politeness. These are people whose nervous systems settle when certainty arrives. When they're unsure, their body is activated. Their voice may be higher, quicker, more reactive. They're scanning, adjusting, responding. Calm calms them. It tells the body, we're safe now, we know. And calm voices tend to be lower, slower, less urgent. So the voice drops, not as a social choice, but as a physiological response. The body downshifts, the mind stops racing, and the sound follows. If this is you, you might notice that your quietest voice comes out when you finally made peace with a decision, especially one that took you a long time. Not when you announce it, but when you say it to someone who matters. There's something quietly subversive about all of this. We live in a culture that associates volume with confidence, loud opinions, big energy, strong takes. But these quieter forms of certainty don't perform strength, they assume it. Lowering the voice when you feel certain can be a refusal to compete, a refusal to dramatize, a refusal to sell what you already know. And that can make some people uncomfortable, because quiet certainty doesn't ask for permission. It doesn't chase validation. It doesn't speed up to keep others engaged. It slows down. It waits. It assumes that if the message matters, someone will meet it halfway. So the question to sit with is, when your voice lowers, what has just happened inside you? Did something click into place? Did you stop negotiating? Did you decide you didn't need to be louder to be right? Or did you touch something that felt too real to shout? And when you hear someone else do it, when a room quiets because one voice got softer, do you lean in or do you miss it? If you're curious, listen for it this week, in meetings, in arguments, in confessions, in yourself. Notice when volume rises to search and when it falls because the search is over. And if this landed somewhere familiar, maybe uncomfortably familiar, you already know what to do next. Which type felt closest to you? I'd be curious to hear.